art technology and AI in general has had some truly incredible, amazing, and terrifying advancements in the past year. And as much as we might want to put the toothpaste back in the tube, we can't. AI art is only going to keep getting better. So the real questions are, 1, how much of a risk is it really? And 2, what can we do about it? How can we move forward? I think the reality is that AI will have profound effects on virtually every single industry, not just art. And yeah, it's probably going to render a lot of jobs obsolete. Now, whether we're talking about Steve Jobs presenting the iPhone levels of change or industrial revolution levels of change is unclear. The first iPhone changed a ton, but the industrial revolution changed the way that humanity structures our collective society. It changed, the world as we know it, as we understand it today. It paved the way for countless innovations in new industries. I don't know where on that spectrum of a nothing burger to iPhone to industrial revolution AI will come down on. I think it's probably going to change a lot. It's pretty obvious to me that while the Industrial Revolution reshaped blue-collar jobs, AI technology will likely reshape white-collar jobs in a way that hasn't necessarily ever been done before. I really don't think the art industry, us artists, are going to be the only ones affected by this. And maybe hearing that it's going to affect more industries makes you more pessimistic. Maybe it makes you feel just worse about the state of the world. But as problems like this, as the threat of automation by AI affects more and more industries, the pressure to implement regulations is only going to go up. There are likely going to be lots of regulations and lots of laws passed restricting the applications where AI can be used. The idea that we're not going to be alone in this will be a problem that our entire society will face, it's kind of comforting, I guess. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've never really been all that attached to the idea of job security as a concept. To paint a picture for you, I am currently 23 years old, right? I have worked as a cashier. I've been a tech support person, and then I was a manager, and then I was a teaching assistant, and then I was a virtual assistant, and then I was a freelance video editor, and now I'm an art YouTuber, and I have a degree in political science. None of that makes any sense to me if I think about my resume. It's just a mess. I've jumped around so many industries, and the reality is that for people our age and in this modern job market, that is the norm. The norm is to switch jobs every few years to have a salary increase, and often you're going to switch industries too over the course of your life, many times. That's just how it is. The time where it was really typical to work one job for your entire career is gone. That's just not how it is anymore. So to me, the idea that, okay, I wake up in 6 months, my job has been rendered obsolete, that sucks. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to undersell that, but it's not a life-ending proposition for me. I have confidence, and I hope that you do too, that the skills that you have as a human being mean that, okay, your job was rendered obsolete, that sucks. You're going to dust off your old resume and pick up a new skill or 2 or 20 if you have to, switch industries, and you'll figure something out. And I think we should be comforted by the fact that upheaval has happened in the art world before. This isn't new. Yes, it's going to be new in that the scale is going to be very different probably, right? But when 3D animation hit the scene and pushed out tons of 2D animators and revolutionized the animation industry, the world didn't end. When digital art rose in prominence, fine art didn't stop being a thing. People still oil paint. I'm a great example of this, I guess. All of these things changed the art world, yes, but they didn't end it. It just changed the way that we do things. In my most optimistic of days, when I wake up and the world's all sunshine and rainbows, that's the kind of future that I hope for us, that AI will simply be a tool that artists use. But the reality is a bit more complicated than that, right? I do think it's important to remember, though, that change isn't new. Change is arguably the one constant of human existence. Change is a thing that you can count on time and time again. It is reliable. The world just doesn't stay stagnant. Technology marches on, the world advances. Like it or not, we have to adapt with the times if we don't want to be left behind. And okay, yeah, this change, the AI art revolution, yes, it is poised to likely be far more impactful than the switch from 2D to 3D animation. I do not dispute that, but we truly don't know how impactful it's going to be yet. We don't really know. Like, this is just starting. We are going to have so many years to come to adapt our art careers, our creative practices, our business models to accommodate this massive change. But for argument's sake, let's think about that worst case scenario. Let's think about the worst possible thing that could happen, right? Let's think about the example where companies try to do everything with AI, firing all but a handful of their human employees to try and automate literally everything. Maybe that turns into a world in which a bunch of our media, our culture, the art that we consume in TV shows, animated films, comics, books, whatever, is AI generated. Let's just think about that for a second, okay? Maybe this technology advances to the point where it's just really good. Like, truly, it is as good or better than a team of humans. I know that seems like a stretch right now for a lot of you guys, but let's just think about it, okay? In a world where nearly anything could be automated, where the latest Marvel movie and the latest HBO Max series, like the screenplay was written by ChatGPT, or like the animated shows were storyboarded and rendered and animated, whatever, by some fancy AI thing that hasn't been made yet. Let's say that all of that is true, that we are overwhelmed in our daily lives by AI generated content. Let's just think of that world, okay? In a world where nearly anything could be automated that way, including creative endeavors, our collective society, we would have to have just a massive reckoning about the value of human labor. The way that companies make money is that they offer services to you or products that you, a person with a job that has money, pays them for. Like that exchange of goods and services, that's capitalism. That's what that is. But if nearly anything can be automated and companies just replace their human workers with robots or AIs or whatever, like people wouldn't have jobs. They wouldn't. That economic system, it would collapse. Like seriously, think about it. There would be rioting in the streets. There would be mobs. Governments would be toppled. And if they weren't toppled, they would simply be pressured to the point where they would have to implement some kind of basic universal income system and regulate against automation AI so that human labor would be valued again. I mean, like the entire world, all of the creative jobs, all of the jobs, period, all of that skill labor being automated away, it is simply not economically feasible with our current system. Massive changes would have to be implemented. And I think the status quo is just very sticky. I think it's very hard to disrupt. That's just my jaded political science, liberal arts college opinion for you. But I think that this doom and gloom scenario that people are talking about is just really unrealistic. I think the world is just more complicated than all of the creative jobs disappearing. Those creative professionals that were fired because of AI would find other work, or they'd band together with other people to create new companies that do actually value their human employees. And hopefully they would leverage AI as the time-saving tool that it can be in its best form, right? They would use that new technology to their advantage and combine that with their human creativity to make something really amazing. And I think when we have these discussions, we also have to factor in consumer preferences. Like when I buy art, I often don't just do it because I want something pretty to hang up in my house. I want to support the individual artist's journey. I want to be a part of something, you know? Like when I support a small business on TikTok and I find out that I was a part of a movement that helped save them from bankruptcy, that makes me feel good. I feel incredible when I realize that. I like being a part of something in that way. And I think a lot of people do too. When you watch your favorite art YouTubers and you buy their prints, do you do it because you love their art? Like, okay, hopefully that's a part of it, yeah. But don't you also buy it because you like them? Because you like their stuff? You enjoy watching their videos? You like who they are as people? You enjoy the content they create? Isn't that a part of it? I feel like a lot of consumers are driven to purchase like luxury goods like art, a thing that's like a want and not a need, because we feel often like emotionally connected to the mission of the brand or the creator, not exclusively because we like how it looks. I think in a world where a vast majority of media that we consume, art that we consume is generated by AI, that human labor, like human created goods, would likely have even more value precisely because they were created by humans. At the end of the day, I think that people like stories. People like helping and supporting other people. While that might seem like silly or too optimistic, or like, Kelsey, you have rose-colored glasses. I don't know. Stories, telling them, consuming them, that is probably the oldest hobby that we have as people. And wanting to express ourselves and communicate something is an intrinsic desire in all of us. That's not weird to say that consumers have a preference for that kind of stuff. It seems obvious to me. In a world where everything is generated by AI, that feels repetitive, hollow. Maybe that's just because that's how AI art feels right now, and it'll get better. And I don't know, maybe AI art will truly be exceptional. Maybe it'll blow us all away. I just continue to believe that stuff that's made by people is going to have a larger impact. Like, just hearing from an artist what they were feeling or that journey of creation, like their life story, everything that's led them to this moment, I think that's just really special. And I think that stuff that's generated by AI is going to have a really hard time replicating that. But let's return back to that topic of job losses. I want to return to this idea of AI art arriving on the scene, sparking a revolution, and suddenly all of the creative jobs that exist are just gone. Like they're annihilated. It's over. Like, forget it. And as a result, there are just a fewer total number of possible jobs out there in the world. I think this is just a big misconception. Humans have this really great track record of inventing new stuff that replaces older stuff, right? But when that new stuff arrives on the scene, it brings with it like new jobs. Like, the world just becomes more complex. Those old jobs sometimes stick around too, and there are just a larger number of total possible jobs out there in the world. When humanity invented cars and we stopped having to use horses, that rendered a ton of like horse-related infrastructure in cities like useless now, right? We didn't need stables in New York City. We didn't need like our firefighters to ride horses. That wasn't like relevant anymore, right? We didn't need as many horses. We didn't need as much hay. All of that horse-related infrastructure like was suddenly not as important to our society. But we had this shiny new thing, right? We had cars. Wild. Crazy new technology. And as a result, we needed car manufacturers. We needed companies that made all these little parts. We needed automotive engineers. We needed like more roads. Eventually we had highways and mechanics and like automotive designers that made cars that were really cool looking and weird. And now we have companies that take old cars and put new car parts inside of them. And it's like a whole thing. Cars, really wild stuff there. But horses like still exist. You can still go out and find a horse. They're still out there. And as a result, even horses became more of a luxury status symbol-y kind of thing. And when 3D animation hit the scene, 2D animation didn't go away. It's still there. Some people even prefer it. There are still 2D animation studios keeping that art form alive. Some people are just avid fans of stuff like 2D animation and claymation and stop motion, and I think we value those art forms more as a result because we know that it takes time. And those same studios, yeah, they do implement some 3D animation technology in their workflow to make their lives easier, but the art is still incredibly skilled. People are still keeping that practice alive. The world thus far has just had this very consistent, reliable trend of becoming more and more complicated. The range of possible jobs out there growing larger by the minute. The job that I have right now of an art internet person, that job did not exist 25 years ago. When I was but a wee little lass, that was not an option for me. A ton of the jobs that I've had would not have been possible 30 years ago. It was just not a thing that was out there. I've got to hope, at least, that the arrival of AI on the scene will generate new jobs, different jobs for sure. But I have just this really hard time believing that there won't be creative, artistically minded people needed in the world. That just seems so incredibly unlikely to me. I just cannot possibly picture that. We can't outsource literally all of our innovation to stuff that was trained on past ideas. We need people who are willing to think outside the box, to invent stuff that's never even been thought of before. The idea that that will be shoved onto an AI exclusively seems really implausible to me. And okay, do you want my real opinion, like my actual real opinion? I think that the idea that AI will replace all creative jobs is very far from a foregone conclusion. There are tons of controversies right now surrounding everything relating to AI. Like, every single possible facet of this new technology, it feels like it has a lawsuit attached. Like, there are tons of things being litigated in the courts right now as it relates to AI. There are tons of problems with data scraping, user privacy, like how these models were trained and how they're being implemented commercially. It's not a done deal yet. You have tons of room to advocate for your own interests if you want to support these lawsuits, to donate money, to, I don't know, join organizations or collective bargaining or union efforts to prevent AI being used in the workplace. There are so many options out there for you. Like, the fight isn't over. There are serious questions about copyright and intellectual property infringement when it comes to the commercial use of AI art. So many of these questions are currently being litigated in the court system, and I just have a really hard time imagining that any judge is particularly keen to overthrow copyright and intellectual property laws. Because here's the thing, right? If copyright and intellectual property laws are done away with and AIs can be trained on anything, it's not just your art that's on the chopping block, but it's the intellectual property of major multinational corporations that spend millions of dollars every year defending their IP in court. There are major companies like Disney that are extremely pro-copyright law and have been for forever. And while I don't necessarily trust them to act in my best interest, I definitely trust them to act in theirs. And right now, our interests are pretty aligned. If AI art can be trained on anything, that means it can be trained on every single Disney movie. Every single one of them. And if anyone can generate AI stuff, then it means that, you could make your own Disney movie, right? Like, if AI gets good enough, you could just train on all of this stuff and, bam. Then you have your next multi-million-dollar major motion picture right there. Do you think Disney's gonna let that slide? Really? I don't think so. And in some good news, the US Copyright Office continues to maintain that AI-generated art and text is not eligible for copyright in the United States. This seriously hinders its applicability for final commercial use. This means that it's going to be really hard for companies to completely automate away all creative work. And honestly, I wouldn't be at all surprised if legislators and regulators saw the writing on the wall and decided to implement some extremely common sense regulations when it comes to the proliferation and use of AI, at least in commercial settings. Companies are going to want to act in their best interest, and they have the money to bankroll lobbyists to influence legislators. Like, the current system is so flawed, but right now, I think it's kind of working in our favor. Honestly, like I said before, I think AI is a risk to far more than just the art industry. I think that AI, at a certain point, if it gets too good, it's going to be an existential risk to the survival of our species. And that's what I think. We're at the point where there are just so many existential risks to humanity that I just don't have the emotional capacity to be worried about them all. And I'm definitely not going to let them taint my relationship with my art. I know that it seems like I'm not very worried about AI art, and I am. I'm super worried about it. We don't have enough information yet. It's not a sure thing. Nothing's guaranteed. The world is so changeable. The situation right now is so fluid that I don't really want to allow myself to worry about it. I'm going to do everything that I can do. I'm going to do everything that I have the capacity and the energy for in the moment, but worrying about it after that is, I think, just not constructive. Allowing it to ruin my relationship with my art or deprive me of joy or make me stop pursuing an art career is, I think, not constructive. I started painting because I liked it. I still like it. I liked being bad at something and then just visually seeing the tangible improvement over time. I liked the challenge. I liked the puzzle of looking at a reference photo or a masterpiece and being like, how can I paint that? How can I depict this visually? How can I learn from all of this amazing stuff? I didn't go into art. I didn't start out willow painting because I wanted to be famous or rich or whatever. I did it because I like doing it. And I still paint for all of those reasons. And the idea that AI could be better than me and faster than me, yeah, that sucks, I guess. But there were already thousands of people who were better and faster than me. Like, the competition hasn't really changed. As a painter, like, I always knew that there were going to be people that were better and faster than me at literally everything that I do. The only difference is that now there are AIs rather than just people who are better than me at literally everything. But like, here's the thing. I'm not trying to be the best in the world. I'm trying to be the best version of me. And an AI can't be the best version of me. I don't even know what the best version of me is. Like, I wouldn't even know how to go about programming that AI if I were to try to build it myself. I make art because I want to. The fact that you guys enjoy it and that you derive benefit from it, that's great. I'm so grateful. But like, that's not the reason why. Don't worry about the possibility of being automated away, of being rendered obsolete. Make art because you wanted to, because you had something inside of you that wanted to express itself, that wanted to make itself known, that wanted to get better at something. I was so disheartened to make a community post last week and ask what you guys thought about AI art, only to read like so many comments from people that were talking about like how AI art had made them so depressed they had given up on their art career and stopped creating altogether. AI art sucks. Don't get me wrong, it's terrible. If I could like wave a magic wand and stop the development of all AI technology, I would in a heartbeat, no questions asked. But I don't have that magic wand. I have to figure out how to live in the world that I do. Make your art for you. Do it for you. Do it because it makes you happy. If you try to make art your job, if you give it your all, give it 110%, and it doesn't end up working out, it can be your hobby. You don't have to monetize literally everything, but you should still make art. You should still make art because you love doing it. Again, you probably didn't go into art because you thought it was going to make you rich and famous. It doesn't really do that very often, if I'm telling you the truth. The idea that you would deprive yourself of joy just because of the possibility of like a thing being better than you, don't be like that. Like, come on. Like, there are already thousands of people, alive and dead, who are far better at you than the thing that you're doing that you will ever be, probably. Make art for you, not for anyone else, not to be the best in the world, just because you want to, because it makes you happy. And if you want art to be your job, again, give it a go. Try it. If it fails, fine. You will live a life without regrets. That is the most anyone can ever ask for. And those are my thoughts on AI art. That's it. I hope that you enjoyed this mess of a video, and I will see you in the next one. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Bye.